This episode is dedicated to my cousin, Javie Ambriz, born on May 23rd, 1993, and parted ways with this world on December 25th of 2023. He was a loving son, brother, and friend, and he will be missed. We honor his memory by dedicating this to all who have or are currently wrestling with mental health. Please know that you matter. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Offbeat Podcast. Happy New Year to everyone. I know that 2024, we're in 2024, and the lovely Darlene Munoz joins me today once again.
I'm back. Shady's back.
Yeah, and so she's joining us today, and today we're going to do it a little bit different, but I just wanted to hop on here and just welcome everyone to first episode of 2024. And from Christmas all the way up until today, it's been one crazy rocky journey in my own personal life. And something, we're going to talk about it, but not the greatest of news came into my life on Christmas Day, actually, literally on Christmas Day. Some very, very heartbreaking, shattering, sad news came to us on Christmas Day. And that was the news that my 30-year-old little cousin decided to part ways with this world. And it was under the most shattering circumstances. And, it feels like it's a bad dream. Honestly, it's been about a week or two, and we've been back and forth. He lived in Vegas, so we've been back and forth to Vegas, to Cali, Vegas. And we just got back yesterday, right? We just got back yesterday with my wife, and man, it was crazy. And so I reached out to Darlene right away, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I just really feel it in my heart that I need to get an episode of this situation. We need to get an episode out there. We need to bring awareness out there. And she was on board. She was with it. And so I thank you, Darlene, for taking your Saturday today to come.
I have nothing else to do, but I'm very happy that you thought about me. And he shared a little bit about what's happened over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit of a trigger warning. We're going to talk about men's mental health in general, and suicide.
Yeah.
It's a hard topic. And again, if you feel triggered, I would encourage you to go seek help. Try reaching out to a suicide hotline. Talk to a friend, and we're going to talk about it some more. But for now, we're going to let George talk a little bit about his family history, maybe share a little bit about his cousin.
Yeah. So yeah, the news that we received on Christmas Day was it was about my cousin. He was only 30 years old, and my cousin he took his life. He took matters into his own hands, and and we didn't even really understand what he was going through. I think that was one of the hardest things. The situation in itself is a very hard situation. My aunt, anyone that knows my aunt, her name's Alma Mireya. We've known her our whole life as my tia Mireya, and my cousin Alex. My love and my condolences and hugs and kisses to you guys. I know that I even told them I said, you know what, I'm gonna do an episode, and they were all for it too. They're like, yeah, they said, go for it, mijo, do it, because more people need to hear about his story, hear about what happened, and there's so many people that are going through what he was going through. And the thing is, I guess so heartbreaking is we didn't realize how much in pain he was. Mm-hmm. He was only 30 years old. He was going to be turning 31 in May. and it's just his birthday is just 2 days after my oldest daughter's birthday. He was going to be turning 31, and that's very young.
Yeah.
That's really young. And when I got the news, I really couldn't believe it. We knew how my cousin was. He was always to himself. He was pretty antisocial, and but he always hugged family. He always received us whenever he was around. But for the most part, he was to himself. And I think we just kind of accepted it like that. We kind of just like, okay, well, my cousin Alex, my cousin Javie, that's, we were all just kind of just living our life. And we just accepted him for who he was. We just, hey, he was a gentle giant. He was a big guy, big six. I think he was like 6'2", big guy. And he was but he was such a gentle giant, and he was, he loved, I know he loved my mom. He loved my tia. He loved his mom. He loved them so much. He was such a good kid. He was such a good guy. He had no malice in his heart that I knew of. He had no malice towards anyone, no addictions, no, he wasn't a bad guy. Like I was a bad guy, I was, even we're talking about that, even when we would go visit, when we would go see my aunt is, man, like, anyone can say whatever they want about me, about my brother, about my cousin, and they'd be right. We were bad little kids. We were bad teenagers, crazy, but my cousin, he was a good guy, but he suffered in silence, and it's something that I really, we're going to talk about, and I don't want to give everything all away at once, because if not, I think I'm going to start crying right away.
Make me cry.
But yeah, just, we lost a good cousin, and it's just sad because he really was just suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And nobody really knew what he was truly going through.
Yeah. It's natural for like loved ones to feel confused about it, because someone who's thinking about suicide, or someone that does follow through with suicide, they do it because they feel like a burden. And sometimes, their family members, they'll feel like, a little bit of anger, because just like, how can you do this to me? His mom probably feels a little bit of that, feeling a little bit, sad, and you feel shame because you weren't there for them. You're just questioning yourself. Like, I should have reached out more. I shouldn't have, pushed away, or maybe if you ever made him feel bad, like I shouldn't have done that. But a lot of people who are, suicidal, like people are commit suicide, is that their family feels like it's like a selfish act, but to them it's just like, I'm a burden. Yeah. To them it's like, I'm doing someone a favor. Yeah. And it's hurtful. It is.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that's what was so crushing, because once we got the news, we were already planning on going to Vegas right after Christmas. That was already in the books, in the plans. And, we had the family, and we're semi-ready. We're last-minute packers. So we were just kind of like, okay. But when I got the call, I myself, I personally, I didn't even know how to react. I really didn't. And I think it's because, I myself have been battling so much with mental health, and trying to move forward and doing the work in my own personal life to be better every day. And then to get hit with that type of news that, your little cousin, he didn't make it. And I think what I felt, it might have been selfish. I don't know. But what I felt in that moment was like, what's the point? What's the point of doing all the work? Why did he have to lose? And none of us knew why. Why? None of us knew why he did what he did at that moment. But I didn't know what to feel. Like, I remember when my grandma passed away, I I felt I started to mourn right away. My tears came out, right away, because my dear grandma, my beloved grandma, my first love, you could say, my grandma, had left us, but she lived a full life, and it was sad to know she was leaving and that she had left, but we knew she had lived a full life. But with my cousin, I didn't know, and it sucked because like my daughter had just come home to be with us for Christmas and to get ready for us to go to Vegas, and she was opening her gifts, and I felt so bad because I just a ball of emotions just came, and I didn't know what to feel, and she was opening gifts at the same time, and I was looking at her reactions, and I felt so bad because like then just anger came, like I think because I didn't know what to feel, my first initial reaction was just like, I just got angry, and I just, I took it out on the kids, I just like, I don't know what exactly I felt in that moment, but I just felt like, like these kids, they're ungrateful, they don't realize what good they have, or I don't know. I just got mad, but really I was just sad, because my cousin was gone, and there was nothing that I could do anymore. There wasn't a phone call that I could make anymore. There wasn't a text message that I could send anymore. There wasn't anything that I could do anymore at that moment,
all those emotions are normal to feel. You can feel angry, you're feeling a little shame, you're kind of confused a little bit. You're seeing so much potential. You saw so much potential in your cousin, and it's heartbreaking that he didn't see that for himself. And he's young. 30 is young.
It's young.
Sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves to have everything figured out by 30. And I'm turning 30 next week, but I feel like I still have so much life ahead of me.
Yeah.
And, hearing about your cousin, I wish, he would have saw it the same way. He was still so young. Like, he still had the opportunity to be loved, and, him being self-isolating, and not being like too social, is kind of like a sign as well.
Yeah.
Like some of the signs is just like withdrawing, maybe substance use, giving things away. Mm-hmm. But some signs of like someone that's thinking about suicide is sometimes they're even happy. Like towards the end, they're happy because they decided, I am going to end my life. I am not going to feel this burden anymore. Mm. And, I don't know if he felt like that towards the end, but some people start to feel like that.
It's interesting that you say that, because that was kind of the last moments that my cousin and my tia had with him on Christmas Eve, because once we got there, we did ask like, what happened? What? And my aunt said that, he was off from work that day. He worked at Amazon there in Vegas, and he was off that entire day. And then my tia was like, I came home. She had just come home from visiting one of her cousins, and she came home, and they were gonna get dinner ready, and so my cousin Alex was gonna cook something, and then she was like, she was gonna cook something else, and so my cousin, he was a big guy. He that was one thing about my cousin, is that he loved to eat. I think at his final weight was like, he was like 320 pounds. He was a big guy, big 6'2", teddy bear, big teddy bear, and so he was. But I guess that he had been that day, Christmas Eve, he had been drinking all day, and making himself drinks, and and he was just without eating, because he was waiting for dinner. So my aunt came home and she said, like, don't worry, like, I'm gonna cook the pork chops, and then once Alex comes, he'll throw, the ham in the oven, and we'll do everything. So I'll get the difficult things out of the way. Don't worry about it. And I guess she did what she did, and she offered him a drink. She's like, he was making cocktails, and then he seemed fine, and he was a little buzzed, whatever, but that he seemed happy, he seemed calm, and then I guess that he made her a drink, and and she was like, oh, it was really good, like, thank you, mijo, and this, and then, like, he just made the drinks and then went back to his room, and and everything seemed normal, everything seemed good, he seemed in a good mood, like nothing out of the ordinary. He wasn't like crying or sobbing or he was just frustrated because the food wasn't ready, but which hungry man wouldn't, and so I guess they had some roommates there, and they were like, man, where's Javie? It's we want more cocktails, because I guess he was making them really good. And so they went up there, one of the roommates, and they knocked on the door. He wasn't answering, and so my tia was like, you know what? I think he's done. I think he's done for the night. And she just like, just leave him. He's probably tired. He's probably done. He's probably had too much alcohol. He's probably, just let him rest. He'll probably wake up later. And the rest of the night went on, and that's where they believe it happened, because after that he never came out. He never came out, and in the morning, my cousin said, I think he went, I don't know if he said he went for a run or he went to go look at some work, something along those lines. He left, and then my tia was like, she said it was around 11 or 11:30. And so she's like, hey, Javie's still not out, and so she's knocking, and he's not saying anything. He's not opening the door. So she finally tells the roommate, like, hey, can you break in, because this is weird. And I think once they broke into that door, man, I mean, that's where I feel so much for my tia, because, man, I don't believe any mother should have to find their child, their baby, because, you guys know, as moms, no matter what, they're your babies. No matter how big they get, no matter how old they get, that's your baby, and she said that she didn't really understand yet what had happened, because he was just on his desk. He was just like kind of just laying on his desk, and he had some headphones on, and she was like, like, she touched him, and she said that he was cold. And she's like, what's going on? What's happened? And she took the headphones off, and she said that, she felt or saw the blood, and she's like, but she didn't know. She's like, maybe the headphones exploded. Maybe it did something to his ear. But then that's when, the roommate that was there was like, helped out more, and kind of, and saw and said, no, like, he did what he did. And my aunt just, like, from there just lost it, and man, and I feel so much for my tia. I feel so much for her, because man, like, it's unimaginable, what she's had to see and what she's had to experience. And on the day of Christmas, why Christmas? I mean, so many questions that went through, and, but it just exactly that, like, it just seemed, he seemed happier than normal. He seemed more together than normal, and it's, I don't know. And maybe the crazy thing is that, you know, because they at the moment they couldn't find the note or anything. They didn't know why. But, you know, in his Google, he did have some Google searches, and in his Google searches, you know, he did have like one of them was like a local psychologist, I think. Like he was looking for local psychologists in the area. And then the other one was like how not to resuscitate. And then the other one was just like a song that he was playing. You know, he was just it was a song that he was playing while that he was listening to, I guess, you know, when it all happened. And yeah, man, I don't even know how to imagine what my aunt felt at that moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
It's a hard topic. Thank you for sharing. I know it's a little bit tough. I have my own experiences about suicide that I'm not ready to share yet, but it's always hard. And you know, it seemed like he was trying to seek the help, but you know, I think in the Hispanic community, it's not really like something that's encouraged.
Yeah.
Like it's just not encouraged. Like it's kind of like we're put to shame, and different cultures experience different expectations on how to handle mental health. Like,
yeah.
you know, Blacks, they don't even consider mental health, or rarely even consider mental health. And then, you know, Asians, Pacific Islanders, they're more like you have to be within the community. And that's how Hispanics are too. You have to be within the community. And, you know, even, you know, I don't know what the family dynamics was, but sometimes the family is not really so helpful.
Yeah.
When they're feeling, you know, depressed and feeling like a burden. But it seemed like, you know, he had shared a little bit about his cousin prior to us meeting, or starting the podcast. And it seemed like he might have been just kind of just disappointed where he's at in life. It probably had nothing to do with the family. And I just, I hope your family sees this and just like, don't blame yourself. You guys loved him, you know, you probably didn't notice any signs because it seemed like it was his personality. But I would just encourage, you know, the feelings that you're feeling, the emotional roller coaster you've been on and your family has been on is completely normal. It's normal to feel that way. It's normal to feel anger. It's normal to feel shame. It's normal to feel confused and sad, and you're grieving. Like, you're gonna experience emotions, and I just want to say it's normal.
Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, I know my like the day before we left to Vegas, like that was one thing that my wife, she pulled me to the side right away, you know, because I went to the room after, you know, kind of just having that burst of emotion, because it was just anger, you know, what I felt, because I didn't know what to feel. And I think that's just so common in us men, you know, is when we have like this turmoil, I guess you could say, of emotions, you know, it's like, what do I feel, you know? And I think at that moment it was like, I don't know what to feel, you know? So I just defaulted to my anger, you know, but my wife pulled me and she's like, look, like, you're grieving, like, I understand you're upset, like, but it's not the kid's fault. It's you, like, just take a pause, take a moment, you know, and you know, and I knew, like, and I just couldn't grieve at that moment yet, you know. I think it's just so many questions, just going through, you know, and I was like, should I leave now? Should I just wait a little bit? And you know, and I was like, started looking at flights and just started, like, we didn't know what to do, and I'm like, you know what, like, okay, let me just get it together for a little bit, and you know what, let's just keep the schedule. We're already planning to go over there. There's nothing we can do at the moment to change, you know, any situation or anything. Like, let's just wait. And so, but when we took off, you know, I think I still had it all just bottled in. I didn't know what to feel. I really didn't. I was like, man, like, even questions like, could I have done more?
Yeah.
You know, could I have done more? Because I admit, you know, like, these last few years, you know, we weren't as close, because growing up, we all were super close. Mm-hmm. that was our childhood. Um, we're still recovering from traumas, like every child, that grows up in a Hispanic home, you know what I mean? But
All the pressure. So much pressure.
but for the most part, like we had an amazing childhood, with my cousins. And he was 7 years younger than me, so he was the baby of us four, because it was always me, my brother, my cousin Alex. My cousin Alex and Juan, they're like the same age, literally, like they're like 5 days apart. And then it was me, so then once Javi came into the picture, I mean, he was a baby. And so the tension kind of like, because they were mean to me growing up, and they're like little bullies to me, but we had fun. Our childhood was filled with, we loved each other. We saw each other like brothers. And and it was filled with, we would spend the night at each other's houses. Our parents would get us McDonald's, you know what I mean? Like that was one thing we would always look forward to, is like the McDonald's, you know what I mean? And watching scary movies. And so we had a really nice bond growing up. And Javi was, of course, he was the younger one. So maybe it wasn't as, the bond wasn't as close, but we still, we treated him like a little brother. We were, once we went into our teens, of course, I got into my mess. We all got into our mess. Like all three of us, the three older ones, my brother, my cousin, we got into drugs. We got into the party life. We got into a whole mess of things. And that's one thing we're talking about too. We're like, man, him being the youngest, we're so glad and grateful that he didn't follow any of our footsteps.
That's good.
He really didn't, and I don't know if it was a mix of like seeing the stupid things that we would do, or, seeing his mom, suffer, because his mom suffered a lot, with my cousin, and my mom suffered a lot with us. So he had a good head on his shoulders when it came to that, but admittedly, like these last few years, it was, sadly, we weren't as close, and so a lot of that guilt did come,
Well, I think that's natural. Like naturally, when we get older, we get into our own lives. You shared multiple times on different podcasts, like the life that you lived as a teenager. It was a very like crazy life, and you got caught up in that, and then you started getting caught up on healing. So it's natural to start to like be more focused on yourself, focus on your wife and your kids.
Yeah.
I'm sure your cousins were also preoccupied with their own lives as well. But I had I think you know him, but I won't say his name right now, but he also has one of the trainers at the gym.
Okay.
He had a friend that, took his own life as well earlier during 2023. Very close friend to him. And he had things going for himself. He had his own meal prep company.
Okay, I think I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, he felt so much pain for him when he heard the news. And it's like, someone can look like they have it all together too, and still just feel like something is missing. And that's why I want to like encourage men, like men need mental health services as well. Like men are often frowned upon when they want to show emotions. Even myself, like I grew up with my dad. He was very expressive of his emotions, but like aggressively, like he was horrible. But he taught me that men should not feel that way. So, in previous relationships, like it was weird to me when some guy would be expressive of their emotions, but in a healthy way. And I was just like, you shouldn't even be feeling anything. Like it was very ignorant of me. But I think that's how society is sometimes, that like they forget that men have feelings too.
Yeah.
Men have concerns and worries and stress. So what do you think are some other stress that men have that you feel like have pressure on?
Yeah, man. So I think that, one of the things that, like I said in the beginning, we really didn't know why. And I think that was one of the hardest things is why on Christmas, why,
Yeah.
you know, and in the middle of grieving, in the middle of everything, it was kind of like, what was going on?
Yeah.
You know, when we returned to Vegas, because we came back, we were there from Tuesday to Friday, and the kids were with us. And I'm telling you, like these last 2 weeks, I want to say they've been so crazy. Like, we were just talking about that with my wife. We are like, man, these past 2 weeks, we got sick at the same time while we were in Vegas. My wife got sick when she was in Vegas, and so we had the kids along with us. We had all three of them, and we're all cooped up in my mom's house. And so it just felt like there were so many questions unanswered, and we were just trying to be a support there for my aunt. So, you know, we were just like, why? So when we came home, dropped the kids off, you know, thankful for my in-laws that they were able to stay with them at that moment. And then we flew back to Vegas right away. And so when we flew back, that's when they found the letter. They found my cousin's letter. It was hidden. It was hidden away in a shoebox. And you could tell that it was written a while back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was something that, number one, we found out it was something he had been contemplating already for a while. And number two, it did answer a lot of questions that my family and I had. And you know, because we didn't know why. We're like, was he angry? Was the support not there? Like, what was it? You know, and just as we suspected, like, no, like the love, the support, it was there, you know, but it was what he was feeling inside.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a lot of the things that he was holding on inside, you know, and I feel that, you know, like you said right now, I think men in general, but especially in the Hispanic community, in the Black communities, and in these communities where, you know, we feel we have to keep things together, you know, because we feel we already have a lot going against us, you know, and so having one more issue like mental health, we, you know, because you're expected to have things together. As men, we are expected to be providers. We are expected to strive in what we do. There's a certain level of competition that we are expected to, in a way, to perform. You know, there's that expectation of us, and in his letter, I mean, it was just full of these expectations that he had for himself that he felt were not met. You know, because the love of my aunt, the love of my cousin, it was there. It was just, he was this 30-year-old young man. And when I started to read the letter, man, like it really broke me down, Darlene, because you know, my wife, you know, she was hugging me. She was, you know, she just put her arm around me. She was just hugging me while I was reading it, because a lot of the things that he was saying there are things that I go through, you know, and it was heartbreaking to, you know, see like things like one of the things that he said, like, man, I don't understand why I can't meet, you know, I can't fulfill my dreams. You know, I don't know why I make goals and I can't make it. You know, things like, I wish I could find a woman that loved me, you know, you know, and it's like these things that for people are normal, but to him, it was something that he was just, for whatever reason, he felt like they weren't going for him. You know, it wasn't working out for him. And it was heartbreaking to hear, not to hear, but to read, because it was like, I wish at that moment I could have been like, Javie, man, like I wish I could have had him face to face and him tell me these things, and me be able to tell him, like, man, you're more of a man than a lot of these guys out here. You know, you're more of a man than me sometimes. You know, I haven't been a good guy, you know, but you are a good guy. I wish I could have like, I wish I could have like had a face to face and be like, man, don't worry about these girls, man. Like, you're gonna find someone. Trust me. Like, give it some time. Like, like you just haven't found the right one. Like, but it's okay. Like, it's not too late. You're only 30. It's okay. Cause like, I, because I felt like that so much. And it's crazy because, when it finally hit me that I was going through things in my own life, I was 30. And I was 30 years old, literally 30 years old. And I had already been struggling with so much internally, but I didn't know what I was going through. I didn't know. Like, I again, I just felt like I needed to put my head down and do what I had to do. I was already married. I already had my daughter. We already had my son. And we had just purchased our home. So externally, it was like, well, what is there to complain about?
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest taboo sometimes that our society and our culture has, is that, what do you have to complain about? Like, and I think that's what makes it so hard for men, because we have responses like that. Like you have it together, bro. Like, what are you complaining?
Yeah.
Like, or that's your job. Like, man up.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, there is a certain level of manning up that we have to do, but I believe there is a way to be able to do it, and I remember being 30, the same age that my cousin was when he took his. And, I remember the situation that really, there was a situation that happened in my life that I finally, man, I blew up, because I was holding things inside. I a lot of the things that my cousin wrote were things that I was going through, just in a different way, because that's the thing. Like, it's kind of like when people go to the gym, it's like people can compliment you, like, man, you're looking good. Like, man, you look good. Like, man, you look amazing. You're doing great. And you be like, nah, man. Like, cause then you see the other person, you're like, hey, that's good. And then you go to that person, man, you look good. What do you do? Oh man, it's okay. Like, it's like, we're like never satisfied, because and what we don't understand is that we're never satisfied because there's something broken inside. And I had something broken, man. I had something broken inside of me that I just couldn't. And, for me, unfortunately, it was a blessing in disguise, though, because just one day, like, it was a December, it's crazy because all kinds of things happened during the winter, like these last few years. It just feels like my grandma passed away. My dear Pastor Armando passed away around this time. My grandma passed away around this time. And but I was 30 years old, and it was a December, and this guy, he just started to run his mouth towards me in a way that I just didn't like, because I felt like he was just judging me. I felt like he was, trying to discredit me. I felt like he was, like, he had no idea why I did what I did, but for some reason he felt like he had the audacity to talk to me in a certain way. But it triggered something inside of me, because it triggered the brokenness inside of me. It triggered the insecurity inside of me. It triggered a lot of emotion inside of me. But more than anything, it triggered the anger and the guilt that I had inside of me. And so I remember, man, like, I just had enough. And I remember just punching this guy. And I didn't even think about it. I just acted. I just punched him because I felt like he just represented just everything that I constantly was fighting for. You know, I was constantly fighting for people's approval. I was constantly fighting for people's forgiveness. You know, I was constantly fighting to fit in. I was constantly fighting to be loved, to be accepted. I was constantly fighting, you know, for me. And I felt like it was never enough. And then just hearing that, and I just punched him, you know, and it was like at that moment, like I just like what like it happened, and then right away, like I just like it just like the cloud just came off, and I'm like, what did I just do? But I say that it was the reason why I say it was a blessing in disguise is because as unfortunate as that situation was, like I was so scared. I went down a dark depression during that time. Like I just felt like everything collapsed because I felt like everything that I was trying to hold up together, the image that I was trying to hold together, you know, in church and ministry, the image that I was trying to hold up with my wife, you know, I felt like everything was just going to be lost. You know, like being this provider, I felt like, man, I'm going to get arrested. And then how am I going to provide? You know, we just got this house and I'm probably going to lose it. You know, we just had all these things. And I was like, man, like, what am I like? My whole world was just crushed, Arlene. It was just crushed. And I went into a dark depression. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. At work, like I would show up, but I felt like a zombie. And the blessing was that little by little, like I started to like, because I was all alone now with my feelings, and thoughts literally started to come to my mind. Like, what is the point? What is the point of all of this? What is the point of me being here? What is the point? Like, I'm not a good dad. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good church leader. What am I? Like, where do I fit into this world? Where do I fit in as a man? Where do I, you know, you have all these things going and you see all these people having success in this. And it's like, here I am, like acting like a 15-year-old, you know, why? You know, and so I was stuck with that thought, like, what do I do? You know, and I'm so glad, I'm so thankful to God because he put two people in my life. And one of them was Pastor Armando, and he put him in my life. And I remember it was one time it's crazy because it almost happened simultaneously because I was in my car because that's what I would do. I would just get off of work and then I would just sit in my car sometimes for hours. And Jeanette remembers, like, I wouldn't come home for hours sometimes. I would just sit in my car. We had a Dodge Stratus, I think, at that time, a little old 2001 beat up Dodge Stratus. That's what I would drive to work. And I would just sit in it, you know, and I would just like, what am I doing? And so I remember doing a Google search for therapy and like counseling. I don't remember exactly what I typed, but I was like counseling in the area or something like that. And then a facility like literally on the other side of where I used to work came up. And it was like Genesis Counseling. And I remember I'm like, you know what? I got to call. And so I called, but it was after hours and I left a message. And then it was crazy because like shortly after, boom, like Pastor Armando calls. And he's like, hey, you know, what are you doing? And I think it was, I can't remember. It's kind of hazy, but I don't remember if it was that next day or that same day. But he's like, what are you doing? Like, oh, you know, he's like, let's go get something to eat. And I'm like, huh? And everything within me was like, no, like I didn't want to see people. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to see anyone, especially from church, you know, like, cause I just felt like there was a time where I didn't want to have anything to do with church. Cause the situation that had happened when I punched the person, it happened at church.
Oh, wow.
And it was because it was a church member. Oh. And it was just, I just felt like, see, man, like just the church sometimes could be the worst.
Yeah.
You know, people from the church sometimes could be the most judgmental people. And I just didn't want anything to do, because my whole identity after getting saved was wanting to help people. And I loved helping people. I did. I wanted to help more people that were in my situation. But the more I helped people, the more I felt they would push me away. Or the more I would try, the more it would get pushed away. And then the very same people that you would end up helping were the very same people that once you made a mistake, they would push you away.
Yeah.
Or not talk to you, or discredit you, or not have anything to do with you.
Well, that's not love.
I don't know.
It's like, how would you, I mean, I feel like as Christians, we want to have like love like Christ. So it's like, if you make a mistake, where's the love? Where's the grace? Where's the forgiveness?
Yeah, and I know that a lot of it through counseling and everything, like I have learned that a lot of it has been because of me too. Like I understand a lot of it is because like I also take responsibility, you know, but you're right. Like it's like once a person takes responsibility, like should we love to reconcile them, or should we love just until they learn their lesson? And sometimes like we play that part.
Yeah.
We play God in that. You know, we're like, well, have they learned their lesson? Oh, I think they have. Well, okay, now they're worthy of my time.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we have to have a good balance, like you know, because there's things that my wrongdoings are my wrongdoings. Like I understand that I have to take responsibility for my own actions, you know. But then there does come a time where, because again, like that's where this is so important, because everyone deals with different situations. I understand now that what I was dealing with, that what I needed the most during that time was a support, you know, and I'm so grateful for Pastor Armando during that time, because, you know, he didn't ask me, hey, George, what's going on? What happened? What this? Like, let's get something to eat, you know? And again, I was like, I want to tell him no, but I'm glad that I told him yes, you know, because, you know, I don't remember if it was that same day or it was the next day when we planned it, you know, but that was the start of 2 incredible journeys of healing, you know, because I didn't understand how broken I was inside. You know, I didn't understand the issues and the traumas that I was carrying inside, you know, and I think that a lot of times, I know for me, I never wanted to dig into those things because I never wanted to feel like I was the victim. Right?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a lot of men can relate to that. Is like you said earlier, I don't want to be a burden. And sometimes like when you do think about like, no, like I don't want to burden my parents, or I don't want to burden my friends, or I don't want to share these things, because what if I do put a strain on that relationship? And so we, in a way, we want to protect it. We want to protect our loved ones. You know, we want to, you know, like I love my parents, you know, regardless of how we grew up, regardless of what they did when we grew up, things like that. I love them, you know, but it was something like, I don't want to go down that route. Well, because I don't want to inconvenience them. You know, I don't want to bring the past up, because what good does the past do?
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't understand that it wasn't so much about digging the past or about being a victim, but like sometimes like we have traumas that are never acknowledged.
Yeah. For men, I would say, because a lot of time men are not encouraged to express their emotions from a young age, men are almost punished. Men get, you know, physically abused or emotionally abused if they even try to express their emotions at a young age. They're conditioned that way. So a lot of time men, even though if you are going through something, sometimes men dissociate. They avoid, they numb the feeling, they become preoccupied with other things. They're like, okay, I'm just gonna keep on going, and you might get more preoccupied with work. And I think that's, you know, they use that as a coping mechanism, as a trauma response, when feelings do arise, and it's not always the healthiest. Like, yes, it's okay to have that drive, like, okay, I got to do something to provide.
Yeah.
But it's, I think men really have to learn to sit down and feel your emotions, because guess what? You're going to take it out on your wife, your kids, a random person that's talking mess to you at church. Like, you're going to feel, you're going to explode, and it's going to be like, it's not even their fault sometimes. And you're going to explode because you're holding in all those emotions that are not meant to be held in.
Right.
And it's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to anyone else around you. But like, I think I want to encourage men to really sit with your emotions and try not to avoid or dissociate or try to distract yourself. Don't feel like you're a burden. Really find, someone, at least one person who you could talk to that you trust, and just be open to it, and just be like, just have a word with them.
Yeah, definitely. And so that's why, like, I understand my cousin and what he was going through all so well, because it broke my heart to read his letter.
Yeah.
It really did. The words that he wrote to my tia, even to his brother. It was heartbreaking, because you could, you could just, the pain was just jumping out those pages. The words that he wrote, like, it wasn't a sophisticated letter. It was his heart.
Yeah.
He wrote his heart on that letter, and I do wish that he could have had the courage, to explain and open that in detail exactly the way he was feeling with someone. And but again, we can become so conditioned. We can become so conditioned that, and a lot of times it is like in the Hispanic community, man, it's so hard sometimes. I remember, like, it was a combination of me wanting to protect, and not victimize, but it also was a combination of, of moments that I've tried to open up. I remember after getting saved, I was probably maybe like 19 or 20 years old. I got saved when I was 18. And so, I, after battling addiction and, gangs and all that, I got saved, went into a rehab, God really cleaned me up, got my life together. And I remember starting to feel certain emotions, and I remember, I don't remember if I was eating lunch. We're having lunch or something with my dad. This was with my dad. And I was like, I felt it in my heart to open up. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to have a conversation with my dad. I try to like, have a heart to heart, I guess you could say. And I get it. My dad, he didn't know how to take things. I don't know. But maybe he was going through things himself during that time, because I know that it was during even a difficult time in his life, relationship and job wise. It was a difficult time, and so I don't know, but I tried, and it was shut down. Mm-hmm. I didn't even get far. Yeah. Like I think I got to like where, hey, I want to talk about like, things growing up, and it was just like, that's it. Like, it was like, and now I'm more mature, to understand that maybe things were going through him, that maybe he just didn't know how to cope with it. Because I could get it. I can understand if when someone comes to you and they're going to approach you on a subject that it can be touchy, but I felt like that was kind of like the story of my life, where it was a constant, like, I want to share this, but it's like, no, bottle it. Bottle it. Like, you want to cry, like, men don't cry.
You will be surprised. I talk, a lot of my friends talk to me about, because I'm a therapist. A lot of my friends talk to me about, childhood experiences, and you'd be surprised how many times someone was shut down by their dad, male and female, including myself, shut down by their dad when they were trying to express themselves. You hear of kids getting punched in the stomach, like my friends were telling me that they would get punched in the stomach if they express any emotions. They would I had a friend that even his mom made him feel shameful for expressing his emotions. So as an adult, he had a hard time expressing his emotions, and the only kind of love that he would receive was girls. That was not good for him.
Yeah.
So I think, you're just conditioned so early on. And I think, if fathers are listening to this, I would encourage you to give your child room to express themselves. Don't tell them, don't cry. I would encourage you, like, if they are crying, like, say that's normal. It's a normal feeling. Don't ever make anyone feel shameful for crying or for going to you to express themselves, because guess what? They're going to bottle that inside of them. And it's not just for that moment. If they're young, they're 5, 6, 7, whatever. If they're young, it's not just that moment. They're gonna carry that onto themselves for years.
Yeah.
Into adulthood, and that's causing so much damage because it's damaging their relationships.
Yeah.
It's damaging them trusting you as a parent.
Right.
And we talked about attachment styles. You're not encouraging a secured attachment style with your child.
Yeah.
When they are not allowed to express their emotions with you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that is a really important subject, because that was, again, we can't change what happened, but I know that one of the heartbreaking things to see on the day of the service, because everything happened pretty quick also too. Like, his service just happened on this Thursday that passed, this Thursday that passed. And his real dad was there. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, like, his so kind of backstory, after he was born, we're trying to figure out exactly when. I know my aunt and my cousin, they probably have more details as to when exactly my uncle and my aunt divorced and separated, but it was kind of heartbreaking because, after that, my uncle never really tried to have a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until years later down the line, but by that time, because a child needs their dad
regardless. Yes.
They and so that's why it kind of ties into even the topics that we've talked about, mm-hmm. of why being a father is so important.
Yes, I agree.
Because I want to be careful, because I don't want to say this. I don't know if my uncle will ever listen to this or not, but I don't want to say this in a way where I want to make him feel guilty or anything, because what he felt that day was heartbreaking to see my uncle, And again, like, I don't know if I mentioned, it's like we're related on both sides of the spectrum. So we are cousins, like, because his dad and my dad are cousins. Mm-hmm. So they're primos hermanos, and their mom and my mom are sisters, blood sisters, full-blooded sisters. So we're like related on both sides. Yeah. And so my tío, like, I remember just like seeing him, and I'm like, I'm gonna go say hi. And my tío, he's a very macho. I mean, we've always known he's just a very macho guy, typical Hispanic, mm-hmm. like, womanizer, mm-hmm. like, he's got kids. I mean, he's that guy, and he's a trucker. So he traveled all over the US and everything, and family in Mexico, families over, like, very macho. And I never seen him so vulnerable. And I remember just going up to him and hugging him, and just to pay my respects to him, because regardless, that's his son. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, he just saw me and he just grabbed me, and he wasn't letting go. Like, he hugged me so hard, and he just pulled me into him, and he just started crying. And I felt his pain, mm-hmm. I felt, because I know that he was feeling guilty, sad, broken, so many things. And he was just like, I don't want to see him, because they had a viewing. They were able to preserve most of my cousin's body. So they were, so they did a viewing, and And he was just like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him. No, not my son, not my son. And I just, oh man, I know, like, I know whatever the situation, only he and God knows, why they did what they did and why he stayed away the time that he stayed away. Only he and God know. I can't judge him. I can't say you should have done better. That's not my place. But I know that he was just so heartbroken.
Yeah.
And it really did just make me like, it really did make me think. And I mean, of course, situations like this will always make us reflect. But it really did make me like, oh God, like, I just want to be there for my kids. Like help me to, because I don't think anyone wants their kids to feel this. I don't think anyone would want their kids to feel lonely. I don't think anyone wants their kids to feel like they can't find love or they're not loved, and oh man, it's like there's this clip that goes around. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I every time that clip comes on, I want to cry, because it's pretty viral and it's so true what he says. And he's like, man, I think it says, don't quote me, but I think the clip goes like I think he's in a podcast and he's like, man, he's like, man, I just want my kids to be good.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm not talking about money. He's like, I'm not talking about that crap. Like, I want them to be mentally good. Yeah. And man, like, that's so true. And I'm like, he's like, I don't want them to go through the same stuff that I went through.
Yeah.
And it's so true, man. And it's like, and when you see things like that, it just really does put more perspective into you. Cause it's like, man, my cousin Javie, like, no mom, no dad would want him to feel that way. I know that if my tia could take what he felt for him, she would do it in a heartbeat. She wouldn't even think about it, but it's like sometimes like we're just taught to suppress, we're not encouraged, to because we're afraid of what people are going to think. And I feel like sometimes even medically, the way things are set up, sometimes it puts more shame. Because it's like if you go to somewhere and you say, man, hey, I'm having thoughts of this. What is the first thing they do?
Oh man, you're good.
Or they want to put you in a crazy house.
Yeah.
They want to lock you up for 3-4 days and observe you and put you and medicate you. And I get it. Like they're precautionary things. Like I understand. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it's understanding that, like, where is he going to run to?
Yeah.
If he's feeling this, he's writing a letter that obviously happened either weeks or months ago. It didn't happen in that moment, because he stored it and he knew that they were going to find it, but who was he going to really run to that would actually like maybe believe him or I don't know. There's so many answers. And that's why I think we have to like encourage this more we have to be more alert, to these type of things, and create spaces for men. That's why I'm a huge believer, like as much as I went through my, anti-church moment, anti-fellowship moment, I went through that moment, but kind of going back like through my counseling journey and all that, it really did help me heal a lot of things, and it helped me become aware of a lot of things. And one of the things it definitely did make me more aware of is that I need community. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I definitely like community definitely does matter, but community only works if we work.
Yeah.
Right. And and that's the thing, you can be surrounded by many people, but if you don't put effort, if you don't put work, if you're not vulnerable, if you're not transparent, if you don't find, whether it be one person that you can be 100% honest with, it's going to be very difficult for them to even embrace that or to know how to help you. So, it's, I think we need to create these safe spaces for people to be able to really sometimes just to listen.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's not even to offer like a word. You know, sometimes it's just listening. You know, and that's one of the things that I learned through therapy. Like, because it was crazy for me. I had never gone to therapy that way. You know, I had done group therapy in juvenile, and most of the time you're just kind of like, you're just kind of eyeing. You know, you're worried. You don't want to reveal too much because then, you know, you're 24 hours a day with the other inmates. You know, so you don't want to like expose too much, and then because they'll use it against you. You know, so you know you're always careful. But I'd never been in a situation like where I'm actually coming to therapy. I'm not court committed.
That was very big of you. It takes a lot for a man to go to therapy. So I give you major props for that.
Thanks. Yeah, it was, man, I never thought that I would I never thought. I was like, yeah, it was crazy. But I remember like going in and I remember the therapist, the counselor. So why are you here? You know, tell me. And I'm like, the whole time leading up, I'm like, what do I say? You know, what should I say? And this but something in me just said, like, if you want help, you need to be honest.
Yeah.
You need to be honest. Like, and that, because that was one of my problems. Like, and that's one of the things, again, like taking responsibility. I was always a good liar. You know, I was always, there's a I don't remember what number it is on the Enneagram. I don't know if you've ever done that. Mm-mm. I can't remember there's a number on the Enneagram though. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's the deceiver, you know, and that's like, I was good at that. Like I was good at putting on a good act.
Yeah.
You know, I was a good manipulator. I was good at that. You know, so when it came to hiding my emotions, I was good at it. You know, I was good at, you know, my wife would even like, you know, how is it like you're like this in front of people, but then when you come home, like, why can't you just talk? Mm-hmm. You know, and I just like, I don't know. And it's true. Like I would be able to like, I could be mad and upset here at home. And then as soon as like we would go to like church or a meeting or something, like I could flip the switch. Yeah. And I'd be like, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. And I'm sure for my wife, it probably bugged the crap out of her. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure, because it's like, yeah, like, dude, like, you know, so something in me was just like, be honest. Yeah. And so I remember going in and I'm like, dang, but if I'm too honest, like, what if like I scare her, you know? But I was just like, no, I'm going to be honest. I remember going into the room and, shout out to therapists, counselors out there, man. Like, cause they really, I don't know what it is about them. Even you, like, I don't know what it is. Like they have this ambience to them, and just like where it's a safe space. And so I remember just sitting on the couch and it's like, so why are you here? Tell me. And so I told her the situation about what happened, and that I socked someone and my anger and this. And that was one of the things that shocked me the most. Her response. Because honestly, like I was so used to, my whole life I've been used to, you did what? Bro, like, yo, why'd you do that? Like it was automatically,
like shaming.
Yeah, like an automatic. And I understand, like we're not all therapists. So it's like, what? You did what? Bro, like, you know, and I get it. You know, that's our natural response sometimes. But she was just like, It's like, and how did that make you feel? And I was like, what?
Like, girl, what?
Like, what do you mean? Like, so you're not going to scorn me? You're not going to you're not going to call the popos right now?
we're pretty much taught to not really like just have like a poker face or have like a empathy kind of face. But a lot of time what people don't really realize is that a lot of therapists have a lot of trauma themselves. And that's the reason why they even go to that field. Is maybe for me, it was kind of like, I want to help the next kid. I don't want the next kid to feel suicidal. I don't want the next kid to question their love. I want the next kid to know how to cope with their feelings, because I'm struggling now as an almost 30-year-old how to freaking navigate my feelings. And that's something that, you know, for people to keep in mind, is that therapists are, you know, often have their own trauma. They're taught to not be so reactive like that, but they will, you know, scold you a little bit if like, you know, if you're practicing, like, let's say you come to me and you're just like, I just want to stop yelling at my wife. And in the next session, you're just like, I yelled at my wife yesterday. I'm going to be like, dude,
Right.
why'd you yell at your wife?
Yeah.
This was your homework from this week to next week. You couldn't stop yelling at your wife.
Yeah.
Like, that's the scolding that you're going to get. But like the initial reaction shouldn't be like a major.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I loved, because I didn't know. I literally thought I was going to get, and I have, like, I've had therapy sessions where I have been like, I've been scolded, and I've needed it, and it's been great because there's been a relationship built there, a trust factor there. But yeah, like, it was just something. And that was one of the things that I always tell people. I always try to encourage men, and I've encouraged so many men, like, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. That's one of the things here's the phone number, here's this, and they're like, but is it going to fix me? And I'm like, no, like, that's one of the things I always tell people is that it's not going to fix you, but what it's going to do, like, for me, what I can honestly say is that it allowed me to understand what I was going through. It gave me the permission that I needed when I needed it, to be able to release what I needed to release, because it created that safe space to be able to talk about some of the things and issues safely, because I think that we are our worst enemies, especially as men, but women too. But as men, I can only speak more, from a man's point of view, but I believe we are our biggest critics.
Yeah.
And because I can probably write a whole book of, all the things that I've talked myself out of, and it usually we usually talk ourselves out of things, and they're usually tied to how we grew up. So, if we are feeling something, like, those voices in our heads from our childhood are going to come up, like, exactly. Shut up, like, man up, get it together. Like, this is life, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, so we constantly, and so we never truly allowed ourselves to, and that's one of the things that therapy really taught me, was that it gave me permission not to blame other people, because that's the thing a lot of men do too. They're like, no, but I don't want to be the victim. Why am I going to go somewhere to talk about my feelings and blame everyone? It's like, no, it's not about you blaming anyone else. It's not about you taking the blame off of you either. It's because it's taught me more than anything, like, things to take responsibility for, but in a healthy way.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of things that we try to take responsibility for that we have no responsibility to take, and there's things that we try to push away that's the reason why, we are feeling the way we're feeling. And I know that's one of the things that we talked to you about earlier, not earlier, but when we're like getting prepared for this episode, was like, I mentioned, I was like, I think that one of the things too is that we have to also teach men that it's not about just shifting the blame, but it's also understanding that how some of our own decisions took us to a place where we're struggling with mental health because of the choices that we make sometimes too, but a lot of times, like, we don't understand it because we don't know how to process emotions in a healthy way.
Yeah. Like it's like I was kind of saying earlier, is that you start to dissociate, you start to like avoid it. You're kind of just like, nah, that's okay. And then you have those voices in your head, like, man up. And it's unfortunate, and it sucks, and you suffer, and everyone around you suffers. And like, I just wish that men were not too like shameful to seek therapy.
Yeah.
Like, even, I have a lot of friends like from the gym that, we talk about life in general, and even, people that, or someone that I was dating before, is just like, I often was asking him how he was feeling, because I knew his life. I knew him well enough to know that he dissociates when he's feeling overwhelmed, and he blocks the emotions. He's numbing himself, and he's just on the go. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I was like, this is going to hit him like a truck when he does feel it.
Yeah.
And I know maybe that's what he might be experiencing as like now, but I'm just like, oh my God, Like,
Yeah.
and it sucks because you numb yourself for so long that by the time you feel it, you're exploding.
And that's exactly what happened to me. And in this big sense, that's exactly what happened to my cousin, just in different ways. But I just thought that it was so crazy and so interesting at the same time that we were both 30, when it was a pivot. It was a big pivot in our life, and I wish he would have taken a different pivot, but I think that's what my heart, because that was one of the reasons why and I had to kind of remember, I think in a way, it was a wake up call, that's the way I took it. It was a wake up call because it's like, why did I start Offbeat Podcast? Why did we start Offbeat Podcast? Because Offbeat Podcast it didn't start on YouTube. It didn't start with the cameras. It didn't. It started when we really started to sit down with people and we started to really realize, man, we would sit down with couples and you would hear the stories of men and how they would feel. Or we would sit down with wives and realize how they felt in their marriage. And a lot of the emotions that they would feel was because it was tied to a low level of self-esteem. A lot of it was tied to childhood trauma. A lot of it was tied to past relationships, and so we would sit down and we would have these conversations. And at the end of it, it would always be like, man, you should start a podcast.
Yeah.
And it would be in coffee shops with my friend, and he would share with me his struggle with anxiety, and he would share with me his struggle with depression and how he would feel and the sadness and conversations with other people that were, man, like my cousin, overdosed on drugs or my uncle killed himself or this or that, and that's where Offbeat Podcast truly started, and I had to remind myself, like, why are we doing what we're doing? Like, I love the interviews that we're doing. Like, I feel like this last year, it taught me so much, on podcasting. It's taught me a lot. I've sat with some wonderful people and people have been able to share their wonderful stories and I love it. But I feel like, man, you know what, this year, we do have some pre-recorded interviews that we're going to get out. Actually one of them that's going to be coming up is about absent fathers, the effects of absent fathers. The other one is going to be about, it was pre-recorded, but we interviewed a woman deputy sheriff, and she shares some of her experiences and the things that she sees in our young people, because we live in what scares me so much, man, is that because I had the honor, my tia and my cousin, and I thank you guys so much. When you guys see this, thank you for giving me that honor. I was able to officiate the service, and boy, I was nervous. I've been able to speak in front of people before, but not like this. And man, it was tough. It was tough because I was trying to get myself together. I think I ran into the bathroom like once or twice to like kind of throw up, because I was just so nervous. Like I was like, man, like why in this circumstance? Like I remember my aunt made a comment, and because the service that they got, it came with a limousine, and so the limousine picked up the immediate family, like my tia. We were there too with my tia and everything, and my tia, she's so funny, she's so cute, man, and she's just a strong girl, strong woman. My tia, like she's a baddie, you know what I mean? She's crazy. She could be, and she's like, she had a little moment. She's like, why I get a limo for this? Like, should have had a limo for his wedding, and I know what she meant, and it's true. Like that would have been a more beautiful moment, but as I was, I was just thinking, like, man, like, why does it have to be this? Why do I have to address my family in this moment? But after reading his letter, it gave me a lot more context, and it gave me confirmation, within me to what I was gonna say. And I really at that moment, like I'm like, because I have been to so many funerals, and sometimes, man, like some of these people that go up on these funerals, they're so scripted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but
If it's like a pastor from the church, they probably have like a prescript.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it so much. Because I feel like a lot of these pastors don't even do their homework.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about sitting behind a desk studying for 2-3 hours. I'm talking about that they never did their homework on who the person was.
Mm-hmm.
Or they don't even try to bother. They're just, I'm going to go up there and just such cliche messages, like just, and I just like, man, I don't want that to be like this. It's like, I want to honor my cousin's memory. And there's nothing that I'm going to say right now that is going to comfort my aunt or my cousin. Like, there really isn't. And there's nothing that I'm going to say that is going to bring him back. So after I read his letter, I felt confirmation. I was telling my wife, afterwards, I said, you know what? His letter really gave me context that I don't want this to be just a normal service.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to honor his memory, and I really wanted to address everyone. I really wanted to address everyone with the issue of mental health. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And I addressed them for them, and I was like, the best way that we're going to be able to honor my cousin, we can't bring him back. Nothing I say is going to bring him back. Nothing, but we can prevent this. And I remember like just having this, I got this just burst of passion in me while I was speaking, and I just wanted people to know how loved they really are.
Mm-hmm.
Because as antisocial as my cousin was, it was so amazing to see his service. There were so many people there, huh, babe? Like, it filled. There was people standing in the back. And I was like, man, like, I wish he could see. I really wish he could see that he really was loved. Maybe people didn't know how to love him because, again, like what he would, a lot of times it's not so much that people fail us. It's just sometimes, and that's why this message has to get out. It's just that we don't understand what we're feeling. Especially men and women, we don't understand what we're going through. We can't identify. I couldn't identify. 30 years old, married, 2 beautiful kids, Darlene. We just got a house. I mean, anyone would probably be proud, would probably be like, man, what else do you want, bro? But I didn't know why I felt what I felt. I didn't know why. I couldn't pinpoint it why. I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know. And so that's why I just wanted to encourage people like to seek the help.
Yeah.
To seek the help that they need, to find someone that they can trust. And if they can't, then try therapy. And if that therapy doesn't work, then go to another therapist. Like, but don't give up. Like, how many times there's so many things, like, we do that with everything else. Like, we don't like a show. What do? We change it and go to another show. Do we give up on TV? No. Like we do it with our phones. Like, oh, I don't like that. We do that with pictures. Oh, I don't like that picture. Let me delete it. I don't like that pizza. I'm going to go try another pizza. Oh, McDonald's did me dirty. But there you go. You go back to Mickey D's. Like, it's like we do that with everything else except our mental health.
Yeah.
Sometimes we give up like so easily because of something. Just because something went wrong. Just because something didn't work out the way that we wanted to. Maybe somebody did let us down. I've been let down. And I've let other people down, but that's the thing, like, is just because something failed us or something let us down, it doesn't mean we should quit. It doesn't mean that we should stop searching, because down the line, like, we're bound to find, and I think the biggest thing, though, and that was one of the things that I really wanted to leave people with, was not with religion. I didn't want to leave people with, like, I didn't want to leave them with that taste of religion. I wanted them to leave there with that taste of Jesus. Because at the end of the day, like, whether people, whether it sounds cliche or not, but one of the things that truly has centered me in my life, even in my lowest moments, it has been Jesus.
Yeah.
And although I've struggled with my identity, and I've struggled with my low self-esteem, and I've struggled with all those things, because those things come from experiences that we have no control of, and some experiences that we did have control of. And unfortunately, sometimes choices we make do have consequences. And sometimes those consequences, those that struggle with mental health more, feel it more, unfortunately. Like, it's like someone who, I always give the example, like, there's people that can divorce and they'll be okay.
Yeah.
They'll move on. And then there's other people that divorce and, man, their world is crushed.
Yeah.
So why? Because we're all built different. We all have different tolerance levels.
Yeah.
And our mental health, it's a muscle, it's a brain, it's our hearts, our emotions. It's not something that everyone, Darlene feels the same as Jeanette. No, you feel different. You guys process things different. And so I wanted to leave people that, man, like, the one who's always going to really know us is God.
Yeah.
He really is the one. And as broken and as messed up as we are sometimes, even despite our choices sometimes that we make, or the choices that we had no control of, and that things just did happen to us. But at the end of the day, like, he really loves us, and he will guide us towards the truth, and he will wrap us, and he will love on us, and he will put the right people in our path. I believe that, because his desire is for us to understand that love. His desire is for us to be able to know and understand that we are loved beyond measure. And I wish I could have told that more to my cousin.
Yeah.
I wish I could have hugged that big old teddy bear, man, and just tell him, like, Javi, like, you're loved, man, like, and I love you, and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to hear that when you don't believe it yourself, that you're loved. Because, before my last relationship, I was kind of feeling sad too, because I was, I wanted to have another kid before 30, and I'm turning 30 next week. And, I talked to my dad. My dad's really good at hearing my emotions now, my feelings now. But, I talked to him about, my relationship, and he's like, Darlene, I know there's nothing more than you want. Sorry. But, a family. He's like, you've been preparing yourself to get married and to have more kids. And he was like, you have your career, you're successful. He's like, you care about people, you love people. He's like, I know you as my daughter that you want a family. So I kind of feel for your cousin, because I feel like we put that pressure on ourselves to, like, be married and to be loved and to have a family. Like, I have my daughter and I love her. She's my family, but, I want, I wanted to be married.
Yeah.
And so, when you talked about your cousin, like, I feel for him, because sometimes it's hard. It's hard to believe that you're loved if you're not sustaining a relationship, or you're not where you want to be in life. Yeah. And recently I just been praying a lot to God. And I was like, pleading to God, like, please, God, like, save my relationship, help him, help me. It's like, and, I believe God's working in him and in that he's in his own journey now. And, but I know God loves me and God has been there for me. He's not going to leave me. And I believe, I truly believe that God, it's in the Bible. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to have a helpmate. And I believe that God's going to provide that for me.
Yeah.
And, that would be something that I would love to share to your cousin too, that, that's my hope. That's where I am so full. I'm so hopeful for the future. And I wish, someone would have told your cousin that too. Like, you're not meant to be alone. You're not unlovable. God has someone for you. Like, you're still young. And I had to remind myself too, I'm still young.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And yeah. And again, like for some people, it might be like, oh, that's such a cliche. Like, oh, Jesus is a crutch. And it's like, yeah, you know what? He is. I don't care. I don't mind, because it really has. He really has. My situation probably would have been different by now. Who knows? But like it's sometimes like we, and that's one of the things that I feel like even we as the church, we as believers, we have to get better at understanding how God's love and how God's word is applicable to our life and even to mental health. I always love the story of, it's funny because once I started struggling more with mental health, it's funny how certain stories of the Bible started to pop out more, and how even how Jesus was and how he would interact with people, how it would pop out in a different way, and my whole fire and brimstone method of preaching changed. It really did, because I started to understand that this whole fire and brimstone style, it might excite people. It might, like revival and this, but you know what? Like, we're always looking for the hype.
Yeah.
Even in Christianity, we're always looking for the hype, and there's nothing wrong with it. I don't want to bash it either, because I think there's times and places, but I always refer to there's a song that Kirk Franklin has, and in I don't know if it's in the middle or something, but I love what he says. And he says, the preacher taught me how to shout and how to speak in tongues, but preacher teach me how to live not when the tongue is done. Yeah. And that's exactly, we need to be better at, is like, man, how do I live outside of Sunday? Because on Sunday, like it's great. It's merry. It's beautiful. But then once I leave Sunday, I got Monday through Saturday. I got Monday through Saturday with my wife. I got Monday through Saturday with my kids. And a lot of times we don't deal with topics, or sometimes we even, we are like in Christianity, sometimes we can be like the machos, what I mean, of Christianity. Sometimes like Hispanic culture, you got your machos, like where just man up, just woman up. And in Christianity, sometimes you can have the same thing where it's just like, man, that's life, just get through it, or God's going to get you through it. And it's crazy, because once I started struggling with those things, like one of the stories that came to me was the story of Elijah. I started to read Elijah's stories, and Elijah was a great man of God. And and there was a moment in that story where he had just done some great things for God. He had just challenged the prophets of Baal, the false prophets, challenged them, beat them. God came through. God showed how powerful and how mighty, and word got back to the queen, and that was Queen Jezebel at that time. And Jezebel had a lot of power, a lot of influence at that time. And when she heard, he thought, because he had an expectation. See, just like us. He had an expectation. There's no way that they can deny who God is now. There's no way. God just demonstrated his power. Jezebel gets word, and instead of her being like, oh, dang, like, you're right, Elijah, like, you're right. Like, God is almighty. He's the only God. I'm going to worship him. I'm going to change my ways. She got angry. She's like, he did what? He killed my prophets? Okay. He's going to see what I'm about now. And so what happened is that she sent a messenger to him. I'm paraphrasing, by the way, all right? Mm-hmm. All the Bible scholars out there, if you want to read it, read the story. I'm paraphrasing, but sends a messenger to Elijah, and the message was basically, hey, like, God be my witness, or God kill me if by tomorrow I don't have your head on a platter because of what you did. Mm-hmm. And Elijah, his expectation crumbled. He had an expectation of what was supposed to happen, of what God was supposed to do. And what happened is that instead of saying, God showed up once, he'll surely do it again, right? No, his human nature came out. And what happened? He said, I'm out of here. I'm running. And it was a combination. The reason why he ran, though, it wasn't so much because he was scared of Jezebel. I feel like it was more the human nature of his expectations being mm-hmm. crumbled. And what happens is when our human expectations crumble, then it's easier for the bad emotions to come in, which was fear. Fear came in, and what happened? He ran. And when he ran, there was a moment when he was running, when he was in the desert, when he was all alone. God was still with him, though. And there was a moment when he's like, man, you know what? God, he said, God, I can't do this. I've let my forefathers down. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be a prophet. I'm not. In other words, like his whole identity was just stripped from that moment. And he didn't know what to do. And that was one of his prayers. He's like, God, take me. I've done what I could. Take me now. And so when I was reading that story, I said, man, because there's so many messages about Elijah, but not like that. Because there's always like Elijah prayed and rain fell. Elijah prayed and fire came down. We always, because as Christians, sometimes that's all we want, the highlights, but we never really talk about the human nature of what people actually went through. His human nature came out in that story. And we were able, and I said, man, so many of us are like that. We have these expectations. And when those expectations, our own expectations come crumbling down, how easy it is to forget how much God loves us. This was a man of God. Mm-hmm. And so what I started to say, I said, like, man, like if that could happen to him, how can it not happen to us? Of course it's going to happen to us. We got to wake up as a church that like, man, we go through this. People in your congregation go through this every single day. Every day they go through this. Yeah. But we don't. But why? Because we're only looking for the highlights. We're only looking for the good. We're only looking for the revival. We're only looking to what we can use. And we're never really thinking about what are the people actually going through in their life at this moment. Yeah. What are the struggles that they're going through? What is culture teaching them at the moment? That is because, man, we live in a crazy culture right now. I mean, social media is a big part.
It's everything on social media for the most part is false. Like, we have podcasts and you see podcasts on social media. I think a lot of time they're authentic, but even then some podcasts kind of throw in some like, just because it's on a podcast, people are like, oh, this is true. Yeah. This is facts. But like, it's sometimes you just listen to it and you're just like so ignorant. Yeah. It's such an opinion and such a horrible opinion. Or like you see people posting like, what they have, like just because they had a little bit of money to buy a amazing purse, or it puts like expectations on us, and it's like we shouldn't even be comparing ourselves to anyone on social media.
It's like it does like those expectations for mothers sometimes, like, oh, this is how motherhood should be, this is how you should be a wife, this is, and we put all these different expectations, and it's like, well, yeah, no wonder, if you have other 25, 26, 27-year-olds on social media that you follow, and if they seemingly, right, because we don't know, sometimes seemingly have it more together, how is it that you're 25, 26, 27 years old? How do you think that's going to make you feel? Mm-hmm. It's going to make you feel like, dang, I'm not doing enough. I got to get my stuff together. You know, like, oh, I got to do this. I have to compete. I have to be better. And it's like, man, you know, like on the plane right here, when we're at the airport, we kind of talked about that, huh? We're like, man, I'm so tired of these dumb social media expectations.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we kind of talked about, we're like, for 2 weeks, you know, since the tragedy that happened with my cousin up until coming back, we haven't touched anything. We haven't touched our businesses. We haven't touched anything. So we've had no stream of income literally coming in, you know, but I was like, you know what? But I feel such peace because you know what? We were there where it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
We were present where it mattered. And I'm so grateful for my wife I'm so grateful for you, babe, because if she were anyone else that had all these other expectations, she'd probably be like, no, like, hey, you know, let's leave sooner. Or no, we can't. What do you mean? What do you mean? We're going to come back, go and then come back and then fly and this. And where's all this money going to come from? Where's, you know, because, you know, there was a lot of expenses accumulated, money that we had to put on our own, like, you know, and so she could have been like, no, but this, no, but that, but what about this, but what about that? But never once complained. Never once like, oh, you know, like, oh, I got to do this. If anything, she's like, man, I just feel like, because yeah, you're on social media and you see everyone posting for New Year's, right? Yeah. Businesses posting for New Year's.
I avoided New Year's because I was already like single and I was like, I don't want to see anybody like, you know, with their significant other. Like I'm over here missing him, wanting to see him. I avoided social media.
Yeah, because it really can. It's as much as we don't want to, but it can, you know, and I'm like, man, you know what? Like I told her, I'm like, man, I'm just so tired. I'm like, you know what? God's got us. Mm-hmm. You know, God's got us. God really does got us. And I know that he's going to provide. Yeah. And it isn't going to be because we're posting 3-4 times a day and we're doing this and we're doing that. And we're like, nah, it's not going to be. It's going to be because one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is, man, you know, one prepares the horses and the chariot, but it's God who wins the battles. Like all we have to do is just prepare for the battle, but he wins the war. He wins the fight. And I love that scripture. There's another one that even says like, and it is the Lord who promotes. He's the one. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just, you know, because it's like like these are moments that we have to be present for them. And I'll be honest with you. And a mix of that came from, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit disappointed. I was a bit disappointed with some things because when this tragedy happened with my aunt, I reached out to people that are in the church. Not my church. The church that I go to, a few people reached out to me and I'm so grateful that. But this was people in Las Vegas. And when I told them what happened, one person never replied back. Mm-mm. And he's a pastor. The other replied back, and then he didn't go. And then my mom's pastor, my mom's a faithful member there, gives there. Didn't even call to ask, what can we do? We didn't ask them for money. I wasn't asking them for money. I wasn't asking them for finances. I wasn't asking them for much. But not one of them, what is the address? I'd like to go visit them. That's your family member? Let's go. Mm-hmm. Not one. Not one.
It's a little bit selfish.
Why? Because we live in a backwards culture. Mm-hmm. Even the church. Where having a service is more important. Because if we don't have a service, we don't have an offering. That is the culture within the church right now. That is the culture. And it made me sad. Because they belong to a ministry that I gave so many of my years to.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife also. And I know we're humans. And it's not affecting me in any negative way. Because my wife, she's I don't know where she gets it, but sometimes in moments she always has the right words to say, and I shared with her what had happened and what I felt, and you know, she had a way of comforting, and it didn't change my view. I'm not mad at God, you know, and that's why it's so important to wrap your identity around God and around Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, man, just I don't know why, you know, I really don't, you know, but this could have been a moment where more than anything, you know, they could have brought comfort, you know, to a family.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't asking anyone to fly out of state. I wasn't asking but it wasn't convenient. That's what I imagine. Because there's really no other explanation, but it just goes to show that sometimes mental health, it doesn't matter sometimes the way it should.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to put I'm not saying that we get so consumed where it's only about mental health, because there's other areas in our lives that we need to build as well, right?
Yeah.
But it should be important, you know? It should be important where we do talk about these things, and we do encourage our young men, our young women, our young couples, you know, to really seek out the help that they need when they need it. So, I mean, but I really want to honor my cousin's memory in that, you know, and especially since it hit a lot closer to home. It hit so close, and I feel that that's going to be the best way that I can honor my cousin, is by doing this more.
Yeah.
You know?
I think this is a very special podcast. I know it's a special podcast for you and your family, and I just hope that you know, this brings you know, I feel like it's going to take a lot to bring some comfort, but I just hope this is like therapeutic for you to listen to, your family members to listen to. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared. I think it took a lot for you to be that vulnerable and share that, you know, it's a very personal thing, and you're still going through the emotions of it. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I did a lot better than what I thought. I thought I was going to, I didn't know if I was going to be able to hold back, but because I still have moments. Yesterday I had another moment where I just, you know, tears just started coming down, you know, because it's not like, you know, I used to call my mom, and it was almost like every time I would talk to her and be like, how's Alex? How's Javie? You know, it was always in the conversation, and I'm not going to be able to do that. You know, he's gone, you know, but he's going to be missed. And Tia, Alex, I know that you guys are going to watch this. I love you guys. And I'm grateful for you guys. I love you guys. And I know that you guys are so strong. So strong. And I love you. I just want to say that I love you guys. I love you so much. And I know that we're going to have more moments together, as we should. And I just, to everyone out there, any men out there that are struggling with this, please seek help. Please. I'm going to put some information on the description as well. I'm going to try to gather as much information as we can. Maybe we can gather some phone numbers and counseling places that we know of, and maybe we can put it in the description. And if you're in Vegas listening to this or anywhere else, I'll try to put some stuff there, and or just follow us on Instagram and send us a message. Send us a message, man. If you're local in this area, man, if you're really struggling with something like this, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out, but find someone, find people. Sometimes I want to encourage men on this subject to please don't feel you have to push people away. Because I think as men, we're good at that. We're good at pushing people that love us away. And sometimes maybe they don't love you the way you want them to love you. I think sometimes we don't want to hear certain things. But you know what? Don't let that be a reason why you push people that love you away. If you have people in your life that truly love you, just be patient. Maybe they don't fully understand what you're going through. Maybe they don't. I get it. Maybe they won't ever fully comprehend what is going on. Maybe they don't fully comprehend exactly what you're feeling. And I get it. But don't let that be the reason you push them away. If you have people in your life, if you have a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister that truly loves you, that wants to see the good in you, don't push them away. We need each other more than what we think. So let's lean on each other. Any other words you'd like to share?
No, I think I already said my closing remarks. And again, just thank you for having me again, and thank you for sharing your what you've been experiencing. And I just hope that my condolences to you and your family. It's a tough subject, so I know there's been tears, and anyone watching this might shed a little bit of tears. And I just encourage you, seek counseling. There's BetterHelp. That's something that you could look on. That's something that you could probably put on the description. Yeah. BetterHelp, the suicide hotline. There's help out there, and just do a little bit of research. I know therapy could be expensive, and I think that's why people shy away from it. But do your research, and there's some that provide some financial aid for it. So I just encourage everybody, if you need therapy, go and seek therapy.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Believe me, we're gonna do our best to bring more awareness to this. Let's. I think she's full time. She's full time co-host. But let's pray that she stays as a co-host. Yeah. No, but really, I look forward to what you have in the future, Darlene. I know that you have a desire to have a practice one day, and I think you're gonna have it. And and I think that we're gonna, even through here, if we start building a client base through here, man, that would be amazing, because you have a lot to share. And sometimes those that have gone through the hardest struggles, sometimes they're the ones God wants to use the most, because they understand what pain feels like. So thank you so much for coming on so much and being with us. So this was Offbeat Podcast. Thank you guys. Don't forget to share this with someone. Share, and let's go. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep reaching out to all those offbeat people out there that feel that life isn't fair, that feel that they just don't fit in this world. You know what? You fit in here. So thank you guys so much. This was Offbeat Podcast.